The massive ships appeared at the edge of human space like dark clouds blocking out the stars. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Earth Defense Station, watching the sensor readings with growing concern. The alien fleet was huge, bigger than anything humanity had ever seen. "How many ships are we looking at?" she asked her operations officer. Lieutenant Commander Park studied his displays. "At least 200, Admiral. Maybe more. The largest ones are the size of small moons." Chen felt her stomach drop. Earth's entire defense fleet had maybe 50 ships, and most of those were patrol vessels and cargo haulers with weapons bolted on. These alien ships looked like they were built for war from the ground up. "Sir, we're getting a transmission," the communications officer reported. "They're broadcasting on all frequencies." "Put it through." The main screen flickered and showed something that made several bridge crew members step backward. The alien was tall and thin, with gray skin that looked like metal. Its eyes were black holes in its face, and when it spoke, its voice sounded like grinding machinery. "Primitive beings of the third planet," the alien said. "I am Ambassador General Zexthul of the Kethmoran Empire. Your species has been judged suitable for incorporation into our domain." Chen exchanged glances with her officers. "Incorporation? That didn't sound good." The alien continued. "We have conquered 43 species across 17 star systems. Your resistance would be meaningless. Your technology is crude. Your military is pathetic. We offer you the honor of serving the Empire willingly." "What happens if we refuse?" Chen asked, knowing the alien could hear her. Something that might have been a smile crossed Zexthul's face. "No species has ever been foolish enough to refuse. Those who considered it saw their worlds turn to glass and ash. You have 72 of your hours to surrender completely. Submit your governments, your militaries, and your people to imperial authority. This is not a negotiation. This is your only chance to avoid extinction." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in silence. "Admiral," Park said quietly, "I'm reading massive energy signatures from their ships. Those aren't just weapons. They're planet killers." Chen nodded grimly. She had served in the Earth Defense Forces for 23 years. She had fought pirates and rebels and corporate armies, but this was different. This was an enemy that had destroyed worlds. The next few hours were chaos. Emergency sessions of the United Earth Council went on around the clock. Military commanders studied the alien ships, looking for weaknesses. Scientists tried to understand the technology that had brought such a massive fleet across the stars. Dr. James Harrison was one of those scientists. He worked in a deep underground facility, studying every scrap of data about the alien fleet. The energy readings were incredible. The ships used some kind of quantum technology that human science barely understood. "They're not just powerful," he told his team. "They're efficient. Look at these scans. Every ship is connected to every other ship. They share data instantly. It's like fighting one giant brain instead of a fleet." Meanwhile, in the Military Command Center, General Patricia Morrison was having the same realization. "They move together perfectly," she said, studying the tactical displays. "No wasted motion, no confusion. When they attack, it will be coordinated down to the second." But not everyone was ready to give up. Captain Marcus Torres commanded a small destroyer on patrol near the outer colonies. When he heard about the alien ultimatum, his reaction was simple and direct. "Let them come," he told his crew. "Humans have never been good at surrender anyway." His communications officer, a young ensign named Kim, looked nervous. "Sir, those ships could destroy us without even noticing." Torres smiled grimly. "Maybe, but I'd rather die fighting than live as a slave. Besides, they might be tough, but I bet they've never fought humans before. That might be their mistake." Back on Earth, the debate raged. Some leaders wanted to negotiate. Others wanted to fight. A few suggested running, taking whatever ships they could and fleeing to the far colonies. Admiral Chen found herself in the middle of it all. As the senior military officer in the solar system, her opinion carried weight. The president himself asked her what she thought they should do. "Sir," she said during a private meeting, "I've studied their transmissions. These Kethmorans have been conquering species for centuries. They think they know exactly how this will go. We surrender, they take over. Life continues under their rule." "And you think differently?" Chen nodded. "I think they've never met a species like us. They talk about honor and submission. Those aren't human concepts. We fight lost causes. We die for stupid reasons. We break things we can't fix just to prove a point." The president was quiet for a long moment. "Are you recommending we fight?" "I'm recommending we be human, sir. If they want submission, they can try to take it." The decision came 12 hours before the deadline. President Martinez addressed the Earth and all human colonies in a broadcast that would be remembered forever. "My fellow humans," he began, "we have been given a choice between slavery and death. But there is a third option these aliens haven't considered. We choose neither. We choose to remain free, whatever the cost." The message was transmitted to the alien fleet along with Earth's official response. It was short and simple. "We decline your generous offer. Please leave our space immediately." On his flagship, Ambassador General Zexathul read the response with something like confusion. In 300 years of conquest, no species had ever refused imperial demands. The response made no sense. "Admiral Vorth," he said to his fleet commander, "prepare for standard intimidation protocol. Destroy 3 of their outer settlements. They will see reason after they watch their people die." Admiral Chen watched the alien fleet begin to move. Long-range sensors showed ships breaking off from the main formation, heading toward the colonies. She opened a fleet-wide channel. "All ships, this is Admiral Chen. The aliens are moving to attack our colonies. We're going to stop them. I know our odds aren't good. But sometimes the right thing to do isn't the smart thing to do. Today we fight not because we can win, but because some things are worth fighting for." Across human space, ships began to move. Small patrol vessels and converted cargo haulers and ancient destroyers that should have been scrapped years ago. It wasn't much of a fleet compared to the Kethmoran armada, but it was human, and that would have to be enough. As the first human ships moved to intercept the alien attack force, Captain Torres sent a message that would inspire resistance fighters for generations to come. "They think they know war," he broadcast to every human vessel. "They're about to learn what humans call war." The Empire had demanded submission. Humanity was about to give them their answer. The Kethmoran ships moved through space like predators hunting prey. Admiral Vorth had chosen his targets carefully. 3 small human colonies on the outer rim, places with families and children. The destruction would be quick and clean, and the humans would understand the price of defiance. The first target was Haven Colony, a farming settlement of 50,000 people. The colonists had maybe 6 hours before the alien ships arrived. That should have been nowhere near enough time to evacuate. Captain Marcus Torres thought differently. "All civilian ships, this is Captain Torres of the destroyer Defiant," he broadcast on all frequencies. "We're implementing emergency evacuation protocol. Every ship that can carry people needs to get to Haven Colony now." The response amazed him. Cargo haulers changed course from trade runs. Passenger liners diverted from scheduled routes. Even old mining ships and private yachts began racing toward Haven Colony. Within 2 hours, the space around the colony was crowded with rescue vessels, but the aliens were coming fast. "Captain," his communications officer reported, "we've got maybe 4 hours before they arrive. The civilians need at least 6 to get everyone off the planet." Torres studied the tactical display. 3 Kethmoran cruisers, each one bigger than anything in the human fleet. His destroyer and 2 patrol boats were all that stood between them and 50,000 innocent people. "Then we buy them time," Torres said simply. Lieutenant Kim looked at him with wide eyes. "Sir, we can't fight those ships. They'll destroy us in minutes." "Maybe," Torres agreed, "but minutes might be enough." The battle that followed became legend among human forces. Torres led his 3 small ships directly at the alien cruisers, using every trick he knew and a few he made up on the spot. He used the colony's asteroid field for cover, ducking between rocks and popping up to fire at the massive enemy ships. The aliens had better weapons and stronger shields, but they had never fought an enemy this desperate before. Torres's ships moved like angry wasps, stinging and running, never staying in one place long enough for the heavy alien guns to target them properly. "Sir, they're breaking through," Kim reported as the lead cruiser pushed past their defensive line. "Not yet they're not," Torres snarled. He turned his ship directly toward the alien cruiser. "All hands prepare for ramming speed, emergency pods to launch stations." "Captain, no!" Kim shouted. "There has to be another way." Torres smiled sadly as he sealed his command chair. "Sometimes there isn't, kid. Sometimes you just have to do what's right and hope it matters." The Defiant accelerated at full power directly into the side of the Kethmaran cruiser. The explosion lit up space like a new star. When the light faded, both ships were gone. But the evacuation continued. The remaining alien cruisers, surprised by the suicidal attack, hesitated long enough for the last transport ships to escape Haven Colony's atmosphere. The colony itself was destroyed 30 minutes later. Orbital bombardment turned the surface into molten rock. But every single person had escaped. 50,000 lives saved because one man decided that some things were worth dying for. The news spread through human space like wildfire. The aliens had destroyed the colony, but they hadn't won. They had faced human determination for the first time, and it had confused them. On his flagship, Admiral Vorth studied the battle reports with growing frustration. "The small ships should have fled when they saw our superior firepower," he told Ambassador General Zexthul. "Instead, they attacked directly. It makes no tactical sense." Zexthul was beginning to suspect that humans didn't think like other species. "Continue with the intimidation protocol. Destroy the other 2 colonies. They will learn." But the attacks on Brightwater Colony and New Chicago went the same way. Human ships, hopelessly outgunned, threw themselves at the Kethmaran forces to buy time for evacuations. More heroes died in hopeless battles. More colonies were destroyed. And every single civilian escaped. Commander Elena Vasquez was leading the defense of New Chicago when she realized what was happening. The aliens weren't just attacking randomly. They were trying to break human morale by showing them how helpless they were. "They don't understand us at all," she told her crew as her destroyer raced toward a massive Kethmaran dreadnought. "They think we'll break if they kill enough of us. They don't realize that every attack just makes us angrier." Her ship, the Revenge, was an old vessel that should have been retired years ago. But Vasquez had modified it with civilian mining equipment, turning it into something the aliens had never seen before. When she rammed the dreadnought, her ship exploded like a bomb. But the mining charges she had installed in the nose went off first, punching through the alien ship's armor like it was paper. Both ships died in the collision, but the dreadnought took longer to explode. That gave its crew time to send a message that would change everything. The transmission was intercepted by Dr. James Harrison's team on Earth. It was in the alien language, but the computer systems were beginning to decode it. "What does it say?" Admiral Chen asked when Harrison briefed her. "They're confused, Admiral. They're asking their command for instructions on how to deal with an enemy that won't surrender and won't run away. They've never encountered anything like human behavior before." Chen felt something like hope for the first time since the aliens arrived. "What else?" "They're frustrated. Their standard tactics aren't working. And, sir, I think we're learning about their technology faster than they're learning about ours." That was true. Every human ship that engaged the aliens transmitted data before it died. Every sacrifice taught the survivors something new about Kethmaran weapons and shields and tactics. Meanwhile, the aliens were just learning that humans were crazy. The breaking point came when the Empire escalated again. A full battle fleet, led by a massive command ship, moved toward Earth itself. Admiral Vorth was tired of these primitive beings and their senseless resistance. "We will destroy their primary space station," he announced. "When they see their home world threatened, they will finally surrender." Admiral Chen watched the alien fleet approaching on her displays. More than 60 ships, including several dreadnoughts that could crack a planet. Earth's defense fleet had 37 vessels, most of them converted civilian ships with weapons bolted on. The smart thing to do was surrender. The logical thing was to accept defeat and save whatever lives they could. Chen opened a fleet-wide channel instead. "All ships, this is Admiral Chen. The aliens are coming to destroy our home. They think that will finally break us. They think we'll surrender when we see how hopeless this is." She paused, looking around her bridge at the young men and women who had volunteered to die for their world. "They're wrong. We're not fighting because we think we can win. We're fighting because Earth is ours, and nobody takes what's ours without paying for it. All ships, advance and engage." The Battle of Earth's Gate lasted 4 hours. Human ships, smaller and weaker but infinitely more determined, carved through the alien formation like missiles. They used ramming attacks and suicide runs and desperate tactics that the aliens had no defenses against. Commander Lisa Park, Torres's former communications officer, had been promoted to captain after his death. She led a squadron of modified cargo ships in a direct assault on the Kethmaran command vessel. "For Captain Torres!" she broadcast as her ship accelerated toward the massive alien dreadnought. "For every human who died free!" Her ship exploded against the alien vessel's shields, but the other ships in her squadron followed immediately after. 5 ships died to bring down one alien dreadnought, but they brought it down. When the battle ended, Earth's space station was damaged but intact. The alien fleet had been forced to retreat, leaving behind 17 wrecked ships and thousands of dead crew members. But more importantly, they left behind something else: confusion, fear, the growing realization that these humans were different from any species they had ever conquered. On his flagship, Admiral Vorth stared at the casualty reports in disbelief. His forces had superior technology and overwhelming numbers, but the humans had destroyed almost a third of his fleet. "How?" he asked his tactical officer. "How did they do this?" The officer studied the battle data. "They didn't try to win, sir. They just tried to hurt us as much as possible before they died. We have no defense against an enemy that doesn't care about survival." Ambassador General Zexthul was beginning to understand what they had awakened. These humans weren't just another primitive species. They were something the Empire had never encountered before. They were a people who would rather die fighting than live as slaves, and that made them the most dangerous enemy the Kethmaran Empire had ever faced. 3 months after the first alien ships had appeared, Dr. James Harrison was living on coffee and determination. The underground laboratory beneath the Rocky Mountains had become humanity's secret weapon development center, and Harrison was working on the most important project of his life. The wreckage of destroyed Kethmaran ships had given him pieces of alien technology to study. What he found was both amazing and terrifying. The aliens used quantum computers that were centuries ahead of anything humans had built, but they had made one crucial mistake. "They connected everything," Harrison explained to Admiral Chen during her secret visit to the facility. "Every ship, every weapon, every communication system. It's all linked through quantum entanglement." Chen studied the holographic displays showing the alien technology. "What does that mean for us?" It means they have a weakness they don't even know about, Harrison said, his eyes bright with exhaustion and excitement. If we can get into their network, we can damage their entire fleet at once. Dr. Sarah Kim, Harrison's lead programmer, joined the conversation. She had been working around the clock on what they called the Prometheus Protocol. It's like a virus, she explained. But instead of infecting computer files, it infects the quantum connections between their ships. Once it gets into their network, it spreads everywhere. What would it do? Chen asked. Harrison smiled grimly. Chaos. Their ships would lose coordination. Weapons might fire at the wrong targets. Navigation systems could fail. It wouldn't destroy them directly, but it would make them vulnerable. How do we deploy it? Kim's expression became serious. That's the problem. We have to physically connect to one of their command ships. Someone has to get on board and insert the virus directly into their central computer. Chen felt her stomach sink. A suicide mission. Most likely, Harrison agreed, but it might be our only chance to level the playing field. While the scientists worked on their secret weapon, the war continued. The Kethmoran Empire had been forced to change their tactics. The humans refused to surrender. And every battle cost the aliens ships and crew members they couldn't easily replace. Fleet Commander Thekvor had replaced Admiral Vorth after the disaster at Earth. He was known throughout the Empire for his ruthless efficiency. When he studied the reports from human space, he came to a simple conclusion. These creatures cannot be allowed to exist, he told his staff officers. They are a threat to the natural order of the galaxy. Species that refuse imperial rule must be exterminated completely. His solution was terrifying in its simplicity. Planet killers. Massive weapons designed to crack worlds apart. The Empire had built them for use against rebellious planets, but they had never needed to deploy them. The threat was usually enough. Humans, Thekvor had learned, didn't respond normally to threats. Prepare the Worldbreaker fleet, he ordered. We will destroy their home planet. When Earth is nothing but asteroid dust, the remaining humans will understand the price of defiance. The intelligence reached Earth through captured alien communications. Admiral Chen called an emergency meeting of all senior military commanders. The news was as bad as anything they had faced. 3 planet killers are being moved into position, she told the assembled officers. They'll be in range of Earth in 72 hours. Once they fire, our world dies. General Morrison studied the tactical projections. Can we intercept them? Not with conventional weapons. Those ships are too heavily defended, but Dr. Harrison thinks he might have an alternative. Harrison joined the meeting by video link from his underground laboratory. He looked like he hadn't slept in weeks, but his voice was steady. The Prometheus Protocol is ready for testing, he said. But we need volunteers for what's essentially a one-way mission. Someone has to get on board a Kethmoran command ship and upload the virus manually. The room was quiet for a long moment. Then Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Kim spoke up. She wasn't related to Dr. Kim, but she had taken the name to honor fallen heroes. I'll do it, she said simply. Give me a team and a ship, and we'll get your virus where it needs to go. Other officers started volunteering immediately. Within minutes, Kim had more volunteers than she could use. She selected 12 of the best Special Forces operators Earth had ever produced. Each of them knew it was a suicide mission. None of them hesitated. The plan was desperate and brilliant. They would capture a damaged Kethmoran scout ship and modify it with human technology. The modifications would let them approach a command vessel without immediately being identified as hostile. Captain Lisa Park, now commanding a small battle group, would provide cover for the infiltration mission. Her ships would attack one of the planet-killer escorts, drawing attention while Kim's team approached the main target. Remember, Kim told her team as they prepared to board the captured alien ship, we're not trying to survive this. We're trying to save Earth. That's all that matters. The modified alien ship was cramped and uncomfortable, but it worked. Dr. Harrison had managed to interface human computers with alien systems, creating a hybrid vessel that confused Kethmaran sensors. To their scanners, it looked like a damaged Imperial ship returning from battle. The infiltration took 18 hours. Kim's team had to overcome alien security systems, navigate unfamiliar corridors, and fight their way past automated defenses. They lost 3 team members in the first hour, but they reached the command ship's central computer core. The Kethmoran quantum computer was beautiful in its complexity. Crystalline structures pulsed with energy, connected by threads of light that carried information faster than human science could measure. Kim attached Harrison's virus to the core network and activated the upload. "Prometheus protocol is active," she reported over her radio. "Beginning transmission now." The virus worked even better than Harrison had hoped. Within minutes, reports started coming in from across the Kethmoran fleet. Ships were losing navigation, weapon systems were firing at random, communication networks were failing. But the real surprise came when the planet killer fleet tried to fire on Earth. The massive weapons charged up normally, drawing power from their ship's reactors. Then something went wrong. Instead of firing at Earth, the planet killer's targeting system locked onto its own escort fleet. The weapon fired at full power into the heart of the Kethmoran formation. The explosion was visible from Earth's surface. 3 Imperial dreadnoughts and dozens of smaller ships died in seconds, destroyed by their own ultimate weapon. Fleet Commander Thekvor watched his fleet tear itself apart in horror and confusion. Ship after ship reported systems failures, weapons firing on friendly vessels, navigation computers sending ships into asteroids. "What is happening?" he demanded of his technical officers. "Some kind of system infection, sir," came the reply. "It's spreading through the quantum network. Every ship connected to the command grid is affected." On the command ship, Kim's team fought a running battle through the corridors as alien security forces tried to stop them. They had uploaded the virus, but they needed to hold their position long enough for it to spread completely. "Kim to base!" she broadcast over the chaos. "Package delivered. Tell Dr. Harrison his gift is working perfectly." She didn't live to see the full effect of her sacrifice. Alien soldiers overran her position 30 minutes later, killing her and the last members of her team. But the Prometheus protocol had already done its work. The Kethmoran fleet was crippled. Ships that had worked in perfect coordination for centuries were now firing on each other, crashing into space stations and sending distress calls in all directions. On Earth, Dr. Harrison watched the tactical displays with tears in his eyes. The virus had worked beyond his wildest hopes, but the price had been 12 brave souls who would never come home. Admiral Chen put her hand on his shoulder. "They did it, Doctor. They saved our world." Harrison nodded, wiping his eyes. Sarah Kim and her team just changed the entire war. The aliens' greatest strength was their coordination. Now it's their greatest weakness. The Prometheus protocol had done more than just cripple the Kethmoran fleet. It had revealed something that would change everything. As the virus spread through their quantum network, it had accessed their databases. Now, humanity knew the truth about the Empire. They weren't just conquerors. They were parasites. Every world they conquered became a slave factory. Every species they defeated was forced to build ships and weapons for further conquest. But the databases also revealed something else. Locations of slave worlds. Populations crying out for freedom. Species that had been waiting centuries for someone to break their chains. Admiral Chen studied the new intelligence data with growing excitement. The Kethmoran Empire was vast and powerful, but it was also brittle. It depended on fear and overwhelming force to maintain control. What happened when that force was no longer overwhelming? "Doctor," she said to Harrison, "how long would it take you to modify the Prometheus protocol? Instead of just disrupting their systems, could we use it to free their slaves?" Harrison's eyes lit up with possibilities. Give me 2 weeks and access to their quantum technology. I think we can do more than just free slaves. I think we can turn their entire network against them. For the first time since the aliens had arrived, Chen allowed herself to smile. The Empire had demanded submission. Instead, they had taught humanity something valuable. They had taught them how to liberate a galaxy. The war was about to change completely. Instead of fighting for survival, humanity was about to fight for freedom. Not just their own freedom, but freedom for every species the Empire had enslaved. The Keth-Morans had picked the wrong fight, with the wrong species. Now they were about to learn what happened when humans stopped defending and started attacking. And this time, they wouldn't be fighting alone. 6 months after the Prometheus Protocol had crippled the Keth-Moran fleet, the war had changed completely. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Liberation, a massive battleship built using captured alien technology and human determination. Around her, the bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency, many of them wearing uniforms from species that had never been free before. The ship itself was a symbol of what the war had become. Human engineering combined with Keth-Moran quantum computers and weapons systems designed by a dozen different species. It was powerful enough to fight Imperial dreadnoughts on equal terms. More importantly, it carried hope to every enslaved world in the galaxy. "Admiral," reported Commander Zell, a blue-skinned Vari who had been freed from the mining world of Kepler 442. "We're approaching the Xeris system. Long-range sensors show heavy Imperial fortifications." Chen nodded. Xeris 7 was a critical target. The mining world produced rare metals that the Empire needed for their quantum computers. More importantly, it held nearly 1 million enslaved beings from 17 different species. Today, they were going home. "Captain Torres, are your task forces ready?" Chen asked over the communication system. The reply came from Marcus Torres Jr., son of the hero who had died defending Haven Colony. He commanded a mixed fleet of human ships and vessels crewed by liberated beings. Each ship in his fleet carried the same message. Freedom was coming. "Task Force Freedom is ready, Admiral. We've got ships from 12 different species and enough firepower to crack a planet. The Keth-Morans won't know what hit them." Chen smiled. The younger Torres had inherited his father's courage and tactical brilliance, but he had something his father never had. He was leading a revolution. The Battle of Xeris 7 became the model for human liberation tactics. Instead of one massive fleet, they used multiple smaller groups that attacked from different directions. Each group included specialists from different species who understood Imperial technology and tactics. The Keth-Moran defenders were caught completely off guard. Their quantum communication network, still damaged by the Prometheus virus, couldn't coordinate their defense properly. Human ships appeared from hyperspace at unexpected angles. Supported by vessels designed by species the Empire had thought broken. Captain Elena Rodriguez, commanding the destroyer Vengeance, led the first assault wave directly into the planet's orbital defenses. Her ship had been modified with Theknari stealth technology and weapons designed by the brilliant engineers of the Quell species. "All ships, this is Rodriguez. Remember, we're not here to destroy. We're here to liberate. Watch your fire around the slave facilities." The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the Imperial garrison had been destroyed, and nearly 1 million beings were free. But the real victory came when the former slaves began volunteering to join the Liberation Fleet. Dr. James Harrison, now serving as Chief Technology Officer for the Liberation Forces, watched the celebration from his laboratory ship. The Prometheus Protocol had been just the beginning. Working with freed alien scientists, he had developed new weapons and defenses that combined the best of dozens of different technologies. "Admiral," he reported to Chen, "the liberated Xeris facilities are already producing quantum processors for our ships. The Technari engineers estimate we can triple our fleet size within 3 months. Chen felt a surge of pride and hope. Every world they liberated became a base for further operations. Every freed species brought new knowledge and new capabilities to their cause. But they also brought new determination to see the Empire fall. Commander Sarah Kim, leading a special operations group, had become legendary among the liberated species. Her teams specialized in infiltrating slave worlds and organizing resistance networks. They moved ahead of the liberation fleets, preparing the ground for freedom. "Chen to Kim," the Admiral called over the secure channel. "What's the situation on Theta Prime?" Kim's voice came back strong and confident. "The Kethmoran overseers are getting nervous, Admiral. Our resistance cells have taken control of 3 major industrial complexes. When your fleet arrives, the slaves will be ready to fight alongside you." That was how it worked now. The liberation forces didn't just attack Imperial worlds, they inspired them to liberate themselves. The Empire was beginning to panic. Fleet Commander Thekvor had been replaced by Supreme Admiral Keth Malik after a series of devastating defeats. The new commander studied the tactical reports with growing alarm. "How many systems have we lost?" he asked his intelligence officer. 23, Supreme Admiral. But the real problem isn't the systems we've lost. It's the ones that are rebelling. Our slave populations are rising up across the galaxy. Keth Malik stared at the strategic display. Red marks showed systems in open rebellion. Yellow marks showed worlds where resistance movements were active. Blue marks showed the few systems still completely under Imperial control. There was too much red and yellow. "How did this happen?" he demanded. "These species were broken. They had accepted Imperial rule for centuries." "It's the humans, sir," came the reply. "They've shown the other species that resistance is possible. Worse, they're teaching them human military tactics." That was the truth that terrified the Empire. Humans didn't just fight wars. They taught others how to fight wars. Every species they liberated learned human strategies and human determination. Captain Lisa Park, now commanding a liberated Kethmoran dreadnought called Freedom's Dawn, was leading joint training exercises with newly freed Quell pilots. The Quell had brilliant minds for tactics, but they had never been allowed to use military equipment. "Remember," Park told them over the training communication channel, "the key to human tactics is adaptation. We don't follow rigid battle plans. We respond to what the enemy does and turn their advantages against them." The Quell pilots learned quickly. Within weeks, they were flying combat missions alongside human veterans, using tactics that confused and frustrated Imperial forces. The liberation of Vega Station became the perfect example of human-alien cooperation. The massive space station had been the Empire's primary shipyard for the entire sector. It was defended by 6 dreadnoughts and hundreds of fighter craft. The liberation fleet that attacked it was half the size of the defending force, but it included ships and crews from 8 different species, each bringing unique capabilities to the battle. Technari stealth ships disabled the station's sensors. Quell tactical computers outmaneuvered the Imperial fleet. Vari engineers used their knowledge of Imperial technology to target weak points in enemy shields, and human crews led coordinated attacks that shattered the Imperial formation. Admiral Chen herself led the final assault on the station's command center. Fighting alongside Technari commandos and Quell tactical specialists, she captured the facility intact. But the real prize wasn't the station itself. It was the data they found in the Imperial computers. "Admiral," Dr. Harrison called from the captured command center, "you need to see this. We've accessed their central database. I know where every slave world is located. I know their fleet positions. I know everything." Chen studied the holographic displays with amazement and growing anger. The Empire was even worse than they had imagined. Hundreds of worlds, billions of enslaved beings, species that had been beaten down for so long they had forgotten what freedom looked like. "How long to transmit this data to all our forces?" she asked. "Already done." Harrison replied with a grim smile. Every Liberation Fleet commander now has complete intelligence on Imperial positions and slave populations. The galaxy was about to become a very dangerous place for the Kethmaran Empire. Fleet Commander Zek Thul, defending the critical world of Altair Prime, watched his sensors with growing panic. Human ships were appearing throughout his sector, but not in the massive formations he expected. Instead, they were hitting dozens of targets simultaneously. Small, fast attack groups that struck without warning and disappeared before his forces could respond. Each attack liberated another slave world. Each victory brought more recruits to the human cause. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're getting rebellion reports from 17 systems. The slaves are rising up. They're using human weapons and human tactics." Zek Thul understood the terrible truth. The Empire had built its power by conquering and enslaving other species, but now those same species were fighting back with human determination and human knowledge. The Empire's greatest strength had become its greatest weakness. On Earth, President Martinez addressed the Planetary Council with words that would be remembered across the galaxy. "When the Empire first arrived, they demanded our submission. They thought we were just another primitive species that would break under pressure. They were wrong about us, and they were wrong about the nature of freedom itself." He paused, looking out at the representatives from dozens of liberated worlds. Freedom isn't something you give to people. It's something they take for themselves when they remember they deserve it. We didn't liberate these worlds. We just reminded their people that they were already free. They just had to fight for it. Admiral Chen received reports from across the galaxy. Every day brought news of new victories, new liberated worlds, new species joining the fight. The Liberation Fleet was becoming a liberation army. The Liberation Army was becoming a galactic revolution. But the Empire wasn't finished. Supreme Admiral Kethmalik was preparing for one final desperate gambit. If he couldn't defeat the human-led coalition in battle, he would try to destroy it through terror. Planet-killer weapons were being moved toward Earth and the other major human colonies. If the Empire couldn't rule the galaxy, they would make sure that the species who defeated them wouldn't live to enjoy their victory. Chen received the intelligence while reviewing battle reports from the liberation of the Centauri sector. The news made her blood run cold. "How many planet killers?" she asked her intelligence officer. "At least 12, Admiral, maybe more. They're converging on human space from multiple directions." Chen looked around her bridge at the crew members from a dozen different species. These beings had fought beside her, bled beside her, and shown her the true meaning of courage. The Empire wanted to destroy Earth to break their spirits. Instead, it was about to learn the final lesson about human determination. When humans fought for survival, they were dangerous. When they fought for freedom, they were unstoppable. But when they fought to protect the innocent, they became something the Empire had never encountered before. They became avenging angels, and their vengeance would burn across the galaxy. 1 year after the Kethmaran Empire had first demanded humanity's submission, Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Liberation as it approached the most heavily fortified world in the galaxy. Kethmora Prime, the Empire's throne world, had never been successfully attacked in 3,000 years of Imperial history. Today, that was about to change. "Admiral," Commander Zell reported, his blue Vari hands steady on the tactical controls. "We're reading massive defensive formations around the planet. At least 300 warships, including their newest Dreadnought class." Chen nodded grimly. The intelligence reports had been accurate. Emperor Vakthal had pulled back every available ship to defend his home world. It was the largest Kethmoran fleet ever assembled. It was also the last. "Signal the coalition fleet," Chen ordered. "All task forces, report readiness status." The responses came back quickly. Captain Marcus Torres Jr. commanded Task Force Freedom, a mixed group of human ships and liberated alien vessels. Captain Elena Rodriguez led the Vengeance Fleet, specializing in fast attack ships crewed by former slaves hungry for justice. Captain Lisa Park commanded the heavy assault group, built around captured and converted Imperial dreadnoughts. But the most important force was commanded by someone the Empire had never expected to see again. "This is Captain Sarah Kim of Task Force Liberation," came the transmission. "All Theknari stealth ships are in position. The resistance cells on Kethmora Prime are ready to begin their uprising." Chen smiled. The Kim name had become legendary among the liberated species. This Sarah Kim was the daughter of the programmer who had created the Prometheus Protocol and the niece of the Special Forces officer who had died uploading it. She commanded a fleet of ships crewed entirely by former Imperial slaves. They had personal scores to settle. "Dr. Harrison," Chen called to the Liberation's chief science officer, "is the final protocol ready?" Harrison's voice came back tired but determined. "The Omega Protocol is ready for deployment, Admiral, but remember, once we activate it, every Kethmoran computer system in the galaxy will be affected. There's no way to reverse it." Chen considered the weight of that decision. The Omega Protocol was Harrison's masterpiece, built on everything they had learned about Imperial quantum technology. It wouldn't just disrupt their systems like the original Prometheus virus. It would completely destroy their ability to coordinate across interstellar distances. The Empire would fall apart overnight, cut off from central command, and unable to maintain control over their scattered territories. "Do it!" Chen ordered. "Send the signal." The transmission that followed was broadcast on every frequency and every quantum channel the Liberation Forces could access. It wasn't just aimed at Imperial technology. It was a message to every enslaved being in the galaxy. "People of the galaxy," Chen's voice echoed across 1,000 worlds. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Human Liberation Fleet. Today, the Kethmoran Empire dies. Today, every chain is broken. Today, freedom comes to every world that has suffered under Imperial tyranny." The Omega Protocol activated simultaneously across the galaxy. On every Imperial world, Kethmoran computer systems began to fail. Communication networks went dark. Command and control systems crashed. Transport ships lost navigation. But more importantly, the protocol carried embedded messages in dozens of languages, instructions for resistance movements, locations of weapon depots, tactical data about Imperial forces. The galaxy exploded in revolution. On Kethmora Prime, Emperor Vakthal watched his defensive displays flicker and die as the Omega Protocol tore through his fleet's command systems. For the first time in his 1,000-year reign, he felt something he had never experienced before: fear. "Status report," he demanded of his military commanders. "All quantum communication is down, Majesty," came the panicked reply. "We've lost contact with the outer defense fleets. The planetary defense grid is operating on backup systems only." Through his palace windows, Vakthal could see explosions across the capital city. The resistance cells that humanity had secretly supported were beginning their uprising. Slaves who had served the Empire for centuries were suddenly fighting with human weapons and human tactics. "How many ships are approaching?" he asked. "We estimate 400 vessels, Majesty. But they're not just human ships. We're seeing vessels from every species we've ever conquered." Vakthal understood the terrible irony. The Empire's greatest achievement, the conquest of dozens of species, had become the weapon that would destroy it. The Battle of Kethmora Prime lasted 18 hours. It was the largest space battle in galactic history, with nearly 700 ships engaged in combat around the Imperial throne world. But it was never really a fair fight. The Kethmoran defenders, cut off from their command networks and facing an enemy they didn't understand, fought with the desperation of a dying regime. The Liberation Fleet fought with the fury of beings who had been enslaved for too long. Captain Torres led his task force directly through the heart of the Imperial formation. His ship, the Marcus Torres Memorial, had been built using technology from 6 different species and armed with the most advanced weapons the Coalition could produce. "This is for my father," he broadcast as his ships carved through the enemy fleet. "This is for every human who died free." Captain Rodriguez commanded the most dangerous mission of the battle. Her fast attack ships had to penetrate the planetary defense grid and establish landing zones for the Liberation ground forces. Her ships were small and lightly armed, but they were crewed by beings who remembered what it felt like to be helpless. "All ships, follow my lead," she transmitted as she led her fleet toward the planet's surface. "Remember, we're not here for conquest. We're here for justice." The surface battle was brutal but decisive. Human Marines fought alongside Theknari commandos, Vari engineers, and Quell tactical specialists. They faced Imperial Guard units that had never known defeat, but they also had the support of millions of enslaved beings who were finally fighting for their own freedom. Captain Sarah Kim led the assault on the Imperial Palace itself. Her ship, the Freedom's Daughter, landed directly in the palace courtyard despite heavy defensive fire. Her assault team included representatives from every species the Empire had enslaved. They fought their way through corridors filled with priceless Imperial art and monuments to conquest. Each step took them closer to the being who had ordered the enslavement of billions. Emperor Vakthal made his final stand in the throne room that had seen the submission of 43 species. He was surrounded by his personal guards, elite warriors who had never known defeat. When Kim's team breached the massive doors, they found the Emperor waiting for them with something like dignity. "So," Vakthal said as he looked at the mixed group of humans and former slaves, "the primitive species has finally come to claim its prize." Kim stepped forward, her weapon trained on the being who had ruled half the galaxy through fear and brutality. "We didn't come here for prizes. We came here to end tyranny." "And what happens now?" the Emperor asked. "Will you become the new empire? Will you rule as we ruled?" Kim's answer came not just from her, but from every member of her assault team, representing species from across the galaxy. "No," she said simply. "We came here to make sure that what you built can never be built again." The Emperor's death marked the end of 3,000 years of Imperial rule. But more importantly, it marked the beginning of something new. Admiral Chen stood in the ruins of the Imperial throne room 12 hours later, surrounded by the leaders of the liberation forces. Representatives from dozens of species looked to her for guidance about what came next. "Admiral," asked Commander Zell, "the galaxy is free. The Imperial fleet is scattered and broken. What are your orders?" Chen looked around the room at beings who had fought and died for freedom. Humans and aliens who had proven that tyranny could be defeated when good people refused to accept it. "My orders are simple," she said. "Go home, return to your people, help them rebuild, and remember that freedom isn't something you win once. It's something you have to protect every day." Dr. Harrison approached her with a tablet showing reports from across the galaxy. "Admiral, we're getting messages from every former Imperial world. They want to know what the new government will look like." Chen smiled. "Tell them there won't be a new government like the old one. Tell them that each species will govern itself. Tell them that we're forming a confederation based on mutual respect and voluntary cooperation." "And if some worlds refuse to join?" asked Captain Torres. "Then they're free to remain independent," Chen replied. "Freedom includes the right to make your own choices, even if we disagree with them." Over the following months, the Galactic Liberation Confederation took shape. It was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of one species ruling others, it was based on the radical human idea that all sentient beings had the right to determine their own fate. The Confederation's founding charter was written in 100 languages, but its core principles came from humanity's oldest dreams: liberty, justice, and the idea that governments existed to serve people, not the other way around. Some worlds chose not to join. Some species preferred isolation to cooperation. The Confederation respected those choices, but most worlds embraced the new order. After centuries of oppression, they discovered what humans had always known. Freedom was worth any price. 10 years after the fall of the Empire, Admiral Chen stood on a balcony overlooking the Memorial Garden on Earth. The garden honored every being who had died fighting for freedom, from Captain Marcus Torres Sr. to the millions of unknown slaves who had risen up against their oppressors. At the center of the garden stood a simple monument with words carved in every language of the former empire. To those who demanded our submission and received our answer. Below that, in smaller text, were the names of every human who had died, ensuring that no species would ever again face the choice between slavery and extinction alone. Chen was joined by her old friend Dr. Harrison, now serving as the Confederation's chief science advisor. Together they watched ships from dozens of worlds come and go from Earth's orbital stations. "Do you think it will last?" Harrison asked, gesturing toward the peaceful scene of interstellar cooperation. Chen considered the question. The Confederation? Maybe, maybe not, but the idea will last. The idea that tyranny can be defeated. The idea that freedom is worth fighting for. She paused, watching a group of young beings from different species playing together in the garden below. The Empire lasted 3,000 years because they convinced people that resistance was impossible. We proved them wrong. Now every tyrant in the galaxy has to worry about someone saying no. That changes everything. Harrison nodded. The galaxy learned something important about humans. What's that? That when humans fight for survival, they're dangerous. When they fight for freedom, they're unstoppable. But when they fight for justice, they become something that changes the entire universe. Chen smiled, watching the children play among the monuments to sacrifice and victory. The Empire had demanded submission and received burning vengeance instead. But humanity's true victory wasn't the destruction of their enemies. It was the creation of a galaxy where children from 100 worlds could play together in peace, knowing that someone would always stand up for the weak, always fight for the oppressed, and always remember that freedom was worth any price. The galaxy had learned the most important lesson humanity could teach. Some things were worth dying for, but more importantly, they were worth living for. And that made all the difference.